The Breen female's neck frills flared to their full, intimidating span. Her golden eyes narrowed to predatory slits as she released the low-frequency growl that had evolved specifically to trigger paralyzing fear in prey species across 3 star systems. And yet the human continued calmly securing volatile specimen containers, as if she were merely humming a pleasant tune. Derek Burns didn't even look up as Astra's claws extended to their full 4-inch length, with an audible snick that echoed through the suddenly emptying laboratory. Around them, researchers from 6 different species abandoned workstations and scrambled toward emergency exits as containment alarms blared. The power failure had triggered a cascade of system failures throughout the high-security lab aboard the Harmony, and now the ship's most dangerous biological samples teetered on the edge of exposure. "Could you hand me that stabilization unit?" Derek asked, pointing to a device on the counter beside Astra. His voice remained steady, his heart rate normal, a biological impossibility according to everything Astra had been taught about prey species responses. The scaled skin along Astra's arms rippled in confusion, iridescent blue and violet patterns shifting as she processed this anomaly. Humans were physically weaker than Breen by every objective measure. The xenobiology reports confirmed their muscle density, bone structure, and reflexes were inferior. Yet this human showed none of the expected terror response to her threat display. "You should be incapacitated," Astra stated, her translator struggling to convey her bewilderment. "Your autonomic nervous system should be flooding with cortisol and adrenaline." Derek glanced up briefly, meeting her gaze without flinching at the sight of her glowing eyes. "I've worked with Komodo dragons back on Earth. You get used to it." He secured another specimen canister as the emergency lights bathed the lab in pulsing red. "That stabilization unit. The beta radiation samples are degrading." 3 months had passed since humanity's conditional acceptance into the Galactic Confederation. Earth's successful defense against the Draxan invasion force had impressed enough council members to grant humans provisional status despite widespread concerns about their unpredictable nature and unusual psychology. Every human representative was required to be paired with a monitoring companion from an established species. Astra had drawn the short straw. Her assignment to monitor Derek Burns came with explicit instructions from her superiors to document any aggressive or unstable behaviors. Breen culture regarded humans as potentially dangerous specifically because they resisted the fear-based control mechanisms most galactic species relied on for social order. Now, watching Derek methodically secure specimens that would liquefy the internal organs of most carbon-based life forms, Astra understood why her people were concerned. The other researchers, Voltons, Meridian, even a talexite physicist with combat training, had fled at the first sign of her threat display. Only the human remained, apparently immune to biological fear triggers that had evolved over millions of years to ensure species survival. She handed him the stabilization unit, careful to keep her claws extended as a test. Derek took it without hesitation, his fingers brushing against her scaled hand. "Thanks. Almost done here," he said, activating the device over the radiation samples. "You might want to retract those before you tear your environment suit. The replacement requisition forms are a nightmare." After the laboratory returned to normal operation, Astra requested reassignment from Captain Morex, the Volton commander of the Harmony. In the privacy of the captain's office, she cataloged the human's aberrant behavior and her concerns about continued proximity to such an unpredictable species. The captain's 4 eyes blinked in sequencia Volton expression of firm denial. "Request denied, Science Officer Astra. This incident only highlights the importance of your assignment. We need to understand why humans appear immune to Breen threat displays." What Captain Morix didn't say what Astra already knew from encrypted communications was that the Breen High Command had particular interest in her findings. Humanity's rapid technological advancement and unpredictable military strategies defied the conventional game theory models used by older galactic civilizations. The Breen needed intelligence on human weaknesses, and Astra was now their unwilling field agent. The human who showed no fear had just become her most important research subject. Astra's daily log entry, Cycle 47 aboard the Harmony. Subject continues to display abnormal responses to standard threat stimuli. During today's lab session, I deliberately knocked over a container of harmless, but visually similar Haxorian acid near his workstation. Instead of the expected startle response, Subject Burns merely stepped aside and retrieved containment neutralizers without elevated heart rate. Further study required. Astra closed her personal data pad with a claw tap and gazed at the human across the lab. 2 standard weeks had passed since the laboratory incident, and Captain Morix had intensified her observation mandate. The captain's orders came with new protocols was to document every aspect of Derek Burns' behavior, from sleep cycles to food preferences to stress responses. The morning after receiving these orders, Astra had discovered her quarters reassigned. The new location, directly adjacent to Derek's, with a shared environmental monitoring system that fed biometric data directly to her terminals. The proximity made her scales itch with discomfort. "Your afternoon nutrient balance is suboptimal again," Astra noted as Derek analyzed cell samples at his workstation. "The synthesizer can produce adequate simulations of Earth proteins." Derek glanced up from his microscope. "I can't stomach another day of synthesized steak that tastes like recycled boot material." His mouth curved upward. No offense to Confederation food tech. Astra's frills flattened against her neck, a Breen expression of confusion she couldn't suppress. Humans frequently rejected optimized nutrition in favor of taste, an inefficient prioritization that contradicted survival logic. "Your file indicates you worked with Earth reptiles. Does my presence remind you of them?" Astra asked, adding another data point to her ongoing observation log. "Komodo dragons are distant cousins at best," Derek replied, adjusting the microscope settings. "They don't talk back nearly as much." The comment registered as attempted humor in Astra's observation categories. She made a note to analyze the frequency of such comments in stress situations versus normal operations. "Engineering team reports ready for plasma conduit inspection," Derek announced 3 days later as they rode the transport lift to Deck 7. His environment suit hugged his frame-standard protocol for maintenance operations in the ship's core systems. Astra's own suit felt restrictive against her scales. "The Breen do not typically work in engineering roles aboard Confederation vessels," she said, more to herself than to Derek. "First time for everything." Derek checked the seals on his gloves. "Captain Morix specifically requested both of us. Something about my experience with Earth's fusion systems providing useful perspective." Astra's inner eyelids flickered a sign of suspicion among her kind. Captain Morix had been manufacturing increasingly elaborate scenarios to observe their interactions. Yesterday it had been a joint xenobiology research session. The day before, emergency response drills that placed them in proximity for 14 consecutive hours. The engineering section hummed with the distinctive resonance of the ship's power core. Chief Engineer Kelv, a stocky Myriasian with 6 manipulator appendages, greeted them at the security checkpoint. "Harmony's plasma conduits require recalibration after the recent power fluctuations," Kelv explained, handing them specialized tools. "You'll inspect junction compartment 47 Alpha." Astra noted Derek's steady hands as he accepted the equipment. No tremor, no hesitation despite heading into a section containing enough energized plasma to vaporize organic matter in milliseconds. The junction compartment was cramped by Confederation standards, barely 4 meters square, with access panels covering every surface. Derek immediately began scanning the primary coupling while Astra documented the power readings. These readings show an unusual harmonic in the power signature, Derek observed, pointing to his scanner. There's feedback coming from somewhere. The explosion knocked Astra backward, her reinforced skull impacting the compartment wall. Emergency lighting activated as darkness engulfed them. Through the ringing in her auditory canals, she heard the compartment's emergency bulkhead slam shut with pneumatic finality. The air filled with acrid smoke. Astra's specialized lungs filtered the toxins automatically, but she saw Derek activate his environment suit's emergency breathing apparatus. "Status," she demanded, rising to her feet. "Power coupling overloaded," Derek replied, voice muffled through his respirator. "Looks like a cascading failure in the control circuits." He tapped his communication unit. "Burns to engineering control. We're sealed in junction 47 Alpha." Only static answered. "Communications are down," Astra confirmed after checking her own unit. "The bulkheads are designed to contain plasma breaches. They won't open until engineering overrides the lockdown." Derek nodded, already checking the environmental controls. "That's going to be a problem. Main environmental systems are offline in this section. Emergency power is routing to life support, but..." He pointed to the temperature display, which showed rapidly declining numbers. "The cooling systems are stuck in emergency purge mode," Astra realized. "The temperature will continue dropping until override commands are received." For the first time since she'd met him, Astra detected a flutter in Derek's heart rate, not fear concern. The difference fascinated her scientific mind even as she calculated their situation. The compartment would reach temperatures comfortable for Breen physiology within 30 minutes, but potentially lethal for humans within 2 hours. "How long can your species tolerate sub-zero temperatures?" she asked. "In this suit, maybe 3 hours before hypothermia becomes severe." Derek was already examining the sealed door. "How long until they notice we're missing?" "Standard inspection protocols allow 4 hours before check-in is required," Astra answered. She watched him working methodically to access the door's emergency circuits, his movements precise despite the dropping temperature. The first hour passed in focused work as they attempted to bypass the security lockouts. When Derek's fingers began to fumble with the tools, Astra noticed the change immediately. "Your manual dexterity is decreasing," she observed. "Core temperature dropping." "I'm fine," Derek insisted, but the shivers betraying his body told a different story. The compartment had reached -5 degrees Celsius, uncomfortable for most Confederation species, but merely brisk to a Breen. By the second hour, Derek's condition had deteriorated significantly. His movements became sluggish, his speech slightly slurred. Astra's scientific detachment began to falter as she observed his struggles. The data recorders in her suit were still functioning, capturing every moment for her superiors, analysis, and her growing discomfort with the situation. "Your body temperature has fallen to dangerous levels," Astra stated, reviewing her scanner readings. "You require thermal intervention." Derek huddled against the wall, arms wrapped around himself. "Unless you've got a portable heater hidden in those scales, we're out of options." Astra hesitated, inner conflict evident in the rippling patterns across her forearms. The Breen High Command had explicit protocols regarding physical contact with humans. Their biochemistry remained largely unstudied, potential interactions unpredictable. Yet watching Derek's life signs gradually weaken triggered something unexpected in her response matrix. "I can provide thermal support," she finally said. "Breen core temperature averages 15 degrees higher than human nominal range due to our enhanced metabolism." Derek looked up at her, surprise evident despite his deteriorating condition. "You're offering to keep me warm. Isn't that against some Breen protocol about maintaining proper distance from lesser species? I am offering to prevent your death, Astra corrected, though her neck frills flattened against her skynbrusment, though she wouldn't admit it. It would complicate my research if my primary subject expired before study completion. A weak laugh escaped Derek's blue-tinged lips. When you put it that way, how can I refuse? Astra moved beside him, awkwardly extending her arm. After a moment's hesitation, she shifted her position and wrapped both arms around his torso, pulling him against her body. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her nervous system. Your species' thermal regulation is remarkably efficient, Derek murmured as warmth began flowing between them. His shivers gradually subsided as Astra's higher body temperature transferred through their suits. Breen evolved on a world with extreme temperature variations, she explained, strangely aware of every point of contact between them. Our metabolism generates excess heat as a survival adaptation. As minutes stretched into another hour, Astra found herself analyzing new and unexpected data. The proximity activated dormant sensory receptors in her olfactory system, detecting subtle human pheromones her species normally couldn't perceive. The biochemical signals triggered a cascade effect, dampening the predatory instincts that typically dominated her interactions with non-Breen. You smell different than expected, she admitted, scientific curiosity overriding cultural restraint. Is that a compliment? Derek asked, his voice stronger now that his core temperature had stabilized. An observation. Human biochemistry produces compounds that appear to affect Breen's sensory systems in unanticipated ways. She paused, noting his relaxed state despite their dire situation. You should be experiencing heightened anxiety from prolonged contact with a predator species. Derek shifted to look at her, their faces uncomfortably close in the dim emergency lighting. Maybe I just don't see you as a predator anymore. The statement triggered contradictory responses in Astra's thought patterns. The implication challenged fundamental Breen identity constructs, yet also aligned with a growing recognition that her own perception of humansoft this human had shifted significantly. What is that expression on your face? Derek asked unexpectedly. Your scales are doing something I haven't seen before. Astra realized the patterns across her skin had formed the iridescent configurations typically reserved for Breen familial bonding contexts. She immediately tried to suppress the reaction, but Derek's proximity made control difficult. It's nothing relevant to our situation, she deflected. Tell me about these Komodo dragons you worked with on Earth. How did you overcome your species' natural fear response? Of reptilian predators, Astra asked, refocusing on their immediate situation. Respect, Derek replied, his voice stronger now. Understanding their behaviors, territory needs, and biological imperatives helped me work safely among them. They're apex predators with complex behaviors, not mindless killers. Astra considered this as her scales continued their unauthorized display. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the occasional hiss of the failing environmental systems. The rescue came 4 hours after the explosion. Chief Engineer Kelv's team cut through the emergency bulkheads with plasma torches, flooding the compartment with blinding light. Astra immediately detached herself from Derek, her scales shifting to neutral patterns as medical personnel rushed in. Burns, you're alive, Lieutenant Pax exclaimed, helping Derek to his feet. When life signs went erratic, we feared the worst. Specialist Vex's thermal assistance proved adequate, Derek said, nodding toward Astra with an expression she couldn't fully interpret. Dr. Thella, the ship's senior medical officer, scanned them both with practiced efficiency. Report to Medical Bay immediately for full examination. Prolonged cross-species contact requires thorough documentation. As they walked to separate examination rooms, Derek caught Astra's eye. Thanks for the warm-up, he said quietly. Guess I owe you one. Astra's frills fluttered involuntarily. The data collected will provide valuable insights into interspecies crisis response. She hoped the clinical phrasing would cover the confusion of new sensations still coursing through her neural pathways. The ship's routine collapsed entirely 3 days later when the diplomatic vessel Unyielding Dominance uncloaked off Harmony's port bow. The massive Breen warship, its obsidian hull adorned with ceremonial markings, dwarfed the Confederation research vessel. All senior scientific personnel report to main briefing room, Captain Morix's voice announced through the shipwide communication system. Prepare for immediate inspection by Breen High Command delegation. Astra froze in her laboratory, acid fear flooding her secondary stomach, a visceral reaction she hadn't experienced since childhood. She recognized the distinctive markings on the warship's command section. This was no ordinary inspection. Derek entered their shared lab space, datapad in hand. Did you know about this visit? No, Astra replied, her scales darkening to deep indigo, a Breen stress response she couldn't control. That vessel belongs to Supreme Commander T. Zorek. Important guy, my genetic progenitor. Astra's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. My father. Derek's expression shifted as he processed this information. Your father is coming to inspect our work. Is that standard protocol? Before Astra could answer, her private communication unit activated with a priority signal. She accessed it, maintaining her rigid posture as the message scrolled across her screen. I am summoned to greeting protocols, she said, voice flatter than usual. Supreme Commander T. Zorek requests immediate isolation debriefing. Isolation debriefing. Derek's brow furrowed. Private interrogation regarding my findings. Astra began organizing her data crystals with mechanical precision. It appears my reports have generated concern among the High Command. The docking bay gleamed under harsh lights as the Breen delegation transferred aboard. Supreme Commander T. Zorek stood taller than any Breen Derek had ever seen, his ceremonial armor adorned with kill trophies from a dozen campaigns. Behind him stood 6 warriors in full battle regalia, and a younger male whose ornate uniform marked him as a high-ranking aide. Captain Morix performed the formal greeting rituals with practiced diplomatic skill, but Derek noticed the captain's secondary tendrils remained tight against his thorax, a sign of tension in Myriasian physiology. The Confederation welcomes Supreme Commander T. Zorek and the distinguished representatives of the Breen High Command, Morix intoned. Harmony stands ready for inspection. T. Zorek's gaze swept over the assembled crew, stopping when he located Astra. Captain Morix, he said, his translated voice cold and precise. The High Command has observed irregularities in Specialist Vex's reports regarding human biochemical vulnerabilities. We will conduct thorough evaluation of all monitoring pairs. Admiral Vrex stepped forward from behind Captain Morix. Derek hadn't noticed the Confederation security officials' presence until now. Confederation security has similar concerns, Vrex stated, his polished carapace reflecting the docking bay lights. Performance evaluations for all human-alien partnerships will commence immediately under joint supervision. Derek felt Astra stiffen beside him. Her scales had shifted to a flat gray he'd never observed before. Commander Krezel will oversee testing protocols, T. Zorek announced, gesturing to the younger male, who stepped forward with predatory grace. Krezel's eyes fixed on Astra with an intensity that triggered an unexpected surge of protectiveness in Derek. The Breen commander's scale patterns shifted briefly to vibrant greens and bluesaw display Derek couldn't interpret, but that caused Astra's frills to flatten completely against her neck. Specialist Vex, Krezel addressed her formally, but Derek detected familiarity in his tone. Your work with the human subject has produced unexpected results. We look forward to understanding your methodologies. Compliance with High Command directives remains my priority, Astra responded, her voice stripped of all inflection. The first evaluation will be a combat simulation, Admiral Vrex announced, consulting his datapad. Testing physical coordination under stress conditions. Combat Arena 2, 1600 hours. Combat simulation. Derek questioned breaking protocol by speaking directly to the Admiral. Is the human specimen expressing concern? Commander Krezel asked, his translator failing to conceal the contempt in his voice. Perhaps inadequate physical capability for standard testing. The human will perform adequately, Admiral Vrex replied before Derek could respond. All monitoring pairs will participate. Dismissed. As the delegation moved toward the ship's central sections, Supreme Commander T. Zarek remained behind, approaching Astra with measured steps. Derek instinctively moved closer to her, earning a cold stare from the commander. Specialist Vex, accompany me to isolation chambers for preliminary debriefing, T. Zarek ordered. Astra's scales flattened completely, a submissive posture Derek had never seen her adopt. Yes, Supreme Commander. As she turned to follow her father, her eyes met Derek's briefly. Through some inexplicable new awareness between them, he sensed her fear not for herself, but for him. The combat arena had been reconfigured for the simulation, its usual training equipment reptinged with an obstacle course designed to test reflexes and strength. Derek arrived in standard physical training attire, a lightweight bodysuit that allowed full range of motion. His eyes immediately sought Astra among the observers, finding her standing rigidly beside her father, her scales a neutral pattern that revealed nothing of her thoughts. Commander Krezel entered from the opposite side, wearing minimal protective gear that emphasized rather than concealed his impressive musculature. His stance projected confidence bordering on arrogance. Combat Simulation Alpha will test coordination and reflex response under pressure, Admiral Vrex announced from the control platform. Burns and Commander Krezel will navigate the course while demonstrating defensive capabilities. First contact initiates the simulation. Derek recognized the terminology. First contact meant physical combat would begin once they encountered each other on the course. He'd participated in similar exercises during Confederation training, but never against a Breen warrior with natural weaponry. Captain Morix approached Derek before he entered the arena floor. This exercise has been approved by medical staff, the captain said quietly. Safety protocols are in place, performed to standard capabilities only. The implied warning was clear. This wasn't about winning, it was about assessment. The simulation began with a tone. Derek entered the course, navigating the first obstacles with practiced efficiency. He climbed, jumped, and rolled through the increasingly challenging terrain, aware that Krezel was moving through his own section with predatory speed. They met at the central platform. Krezel's scales rippled with anticipation, the claws on his upper limbs extended to fighting position. Human, Krezel acknowledged, circling Derek slowly. Specialist Vex reports unusual resilience in your species. I look forward to verifying her findings. Derek maintained defensive posture, remembering his training. Just following protocols, Commander. Indeed. Krezel moved with blinding speed, his first strike barely missing Derek's shoulder as the human dodged sideways. The combat quickly deviated from standard training protocols. Krezel's attacks grew increasingly aggressive, his claws tearing through the outer layer of Derek's bodysuit. A glancing blow opened a laceration across Derek's forearm, drawing blood. Point of contact, Derek called out, the standard terminology for requesting assessment pause. Krezel ignored the call, pressing his advantage with a sweeping kick that connected with Derek's ribs. Pain flared through his side, but he managed to roll with the impact, creating distance between them. From the observation platform, Astra watched with growing concern. The combat parameters had clearly been exceeded, yet neither Admiral Vrex nor her father signaled intervention. Captain Morix's secondary tendrils were writhing with apparent distress, but the captain remained silent. Derek blocked another strike but took a slashing claw across his chest in the process. Blood seeped through his bodysuit in thin lines. Despite the injuries, he refused to yield ground, maintaining defensive position while searching for an opening. "Your resilience is noted," Krezel said, circling again, "but ultimately irrelevant. Humans lack the natural advantages of evolved predator species." Another lightning-fast attack, another laceration. Derek's breathing grew labored, but he remained upright, adjusting his stance to protect his injured side. Combat simulation exceeded safety paradoctorers. Dr. Thella's voice cut through the arena's communication system. Medical override recommended. Admiral Vrex dismissed the concern with a gesture. "Continue the assessment." Krezel launched forward again, this time aiming directly for Derek's throat with extended claws. Derek barely deflected the potentially lethal strike, taking another deep cut across his shoulder in the process. Blood dripped onto the arena floor. Derek's stance wavered, but he refused to call for cessation. Something in Krezel's attacks had shifted from assessment to genuine aggression, a personal element Derek couldn't understand but recognized from previous encounters with territorial predators. As Krezel prepared for another assault, movement blurred across the arena. Astra vaulted over the observation railing, landing between Derek and Krezel with predatory grace. Her scales blazed with iridescent patterns of aggression, her own claws fully extended. "The assessment is concluded," she stated, her voice carrying the unmistakable harmonic of Breen dominance challenge. "Stand aside, specialist," Krezel commanded, his scales rippling with surprise and anger. "The human subject has demonstrated adequate resilience," Astra responded, maintaining her protective stance. "Further testing violates scientific protocols and risks permanent damage to valuable research assets." The arena fell silent. Supreme Commander Tzorek stood at the observation rail, his rigid posture conveying shock and anger. Among Breen, females never intervened in male dominance displays. Astra's action violated multiple cultural taboos, especially in defense of a non-Breen. "Specialist Vex," Tzorek's amplified voice cut through the silence. "You will report to Medical Bay immediately for full biological screening." Admiral Vrex stepped forward. "I concur. This irregular behavior suggests possible biochemic contamination. Dr. Thella, prepare comprehensive analysis protocols." As medical personnel entered the arena, Derek felt Astra's hand briefly touch his arm, a gesture invisible to the observers. Through that momentary contact, he sensed her fear and tenacity with inexplicable clarity, as though her emotions had transferred directly into his consciousness. "This isn't over," she whispered, so quietly only he could hear. "They suspect what's happening between us." Before Derek could respond, security officers separated them, directing him toward one medical bay while Astra was escorted to another. The last thing he saw was Supreme Commander Tzorek's cold, calculating stare fixed upon him, the look of a predator assessing a threat. New sensation of pressure against his consciousness. Pain throbbed through his lacerated shoulder and chest, but those physical wounds paled compared to the sharp anguish of separation as security personnel guided him away from Astra. Derek stumbled as they entered Medical Bay 3, "Hi, Doctor," vision briefly blurring. Dr. Thella, the ship's Voltan chief medical officer, rushed forward with scanner in hand. "Place him on the diagnostic platform," she instructed, her forefingered hands moving efficiently over the medical console. "These lacerations require immediate attention." The security officers positioned Derek on the examination table before retreating to guard positions near the entrance. A force field hummed to life around the medical bay's perimeter. "Doctor," Derek managed through gritted teeth. "Something's happening, Doctor. I can feel." "Remain still," Dr. Thella interrupted, her large eyes narrowing as she studied her scanner readings. Your neural activity displays highly unusual patterns. She pressed a hypospray against his neck. Cool relief spread through his system, dulling the pain from Krezel's attack. As the medication took effect, Derek became aware of foreign sensations flooding his mind: fear, anger, and a strange burning sensation that wasn't his own. Astra. He could sense her presence despite the walls separating them. Her emotions washed through him in waves, distinct from his own consciousness yet somehow integrated with it. The burning sensation intensified, and with it came knowledge he couldn't possibly possess. Astra's body temperature was rising to dangerous levels, her neurochemistry destabilizing as her interrupted mating cycle progressed. Lockdown protocols initiated, announced the ship's autumn doctor, D-system. Medical quarantine in effect. Dr. Thella's head tilted sharply as emergency lights activated. "This is not standard procedure for combat injuries," she muttered, moving to a secondary console. Through the transparent wall of his quarantine area, Derek observed increased activity in the corridor. Armed security personnel took position DRT key junctions, their weapons powered and ready. "Dr. Thella," Admiral Vrex's voice came through the communication system. "Prepare the human specimen for transport. Security will arrive shortly with a stasis chamber." The Voltan doctor's expression remained neutral, but her fingers paused momentarily over her console. "Admiral, the patient requires immediate treatment for multiple lacerations. Stasis would delay necessary medical intervention." "Your concerns are noted and overridden," Vrex replied. "Confederation security has identified a potential biohazard situation requiring specialized containment. The same protoc doctor. Apply to Specialist Vex." The communication cut off before Dr. Thella could respond. She glanced at Derek, then tapped a sequence into her console that dimmed the observation windows. "Your injuries are significant but not life-threatening," she said, approaching with a tissue regenerator. "However, your biochemistry shows remarkable alterations since your last examination." Derek winced as the regenerator sealed the deepest lacerat doctor across his chest. "I can feel her, Doctor. Astrash is in distress." Dr. Thella's eyes widened slightly. "Telepathic connection between incompatible species is theoretically impossible." "It's happening," Derek insisted. "Her body temperature is elevated. Her neural patterns are destabilizing. She needs..." He stopped, unwilling to void Doctor, the knowledge that had transferred through their connection. "She needs you," Dr. Thella completed, her voice dropping to barely audible levels. "The biochemical signatures in your blood sample match patterns I've observed in bonded breen pairs." She moved to a secure terminal, entering a complex authorization sequence. "Admiral Vrex has been accessing restricted xenobiological research files for weeks. His interest in human-breen interaction predates your assignment to this monitoring pair." The terminal displayed a complex molecular structure rotating slowly on screen. "This is a sample of your blood from your arrival on Harmony." She tapped a command, and a second structure appeared. "This is your current blood sample. The cellular architecture has undergone significant reconfiguration, incorporating elements consistent with breen biochemistry." Derek stared at the display, trying to process the implications. "Is this why they're putting us in stasis? Protocols don't typically involve stasis transport to black site facilities," Dr. Thella said, her fingers moving rapidly across her console. "I've accessed Admiral Vrex's requisition orders. The coordinates for your destination aren't registered in any official Confederation database." A sudden spike of pain shot through Derek's mind. Astra's pain, not his own. His body temperature dropped sharply in response, triggering medical alarms. "Her condition is deteriorating," he gasped, struggling to sit upright. "Doctor, whatever is Doctor, penning between us, it's not complete. The separation is causing physical damage to both of us." Dr. Thella moved quickly between monitoring stations, reviewing data with increasing concern. Your cellular structures are attempting to stabilize around a hybrid configuration, but the process requires proximity to complete. She accessed another console. Specialist Vex's readings show similar distress. Her biochemistry is fluctuating dangerously. The ship's environmental control system activated, sensors detecting life-threatening changes in both patients' vital signs. Emergency medical protocols engaged automatically, overriding the quarantine parameters. The force field between Derek's chamber and the adjacent medical bay flickered and dissolved. An out doctor, eyes security protocol override, announced the ship's system. Emergency medical intervention activated. Dr. Thella stepped back from her console, her expression unreadable as Derek stumbled from the examination table. His body moved with instinctual certainty toward Dr. The adjoining chamber where Astra lay restrained on a similar diagnostic platform. Proximity requirement confirmed, Dr. Thella murmured, watching her medical scanners as Derek approached Astra. The moment his hand touched her arm, both their vital signs began stabilizing. Astra's eyes snapped open, pupils dilated and scales shifting through rapid color patterns before settling into a synchronized rhythm that matched Derek's heartbeat. The isolation accelerated the transformation, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Derek, they know about us, about what's happening. Derek watched in fascination as faint iridescent patterns appeared on his forearm where it contacted Astra's scales. The patterns resembled Breen scale formations but integrated Dr. aimlessly with his human skin. Security breach in Medical Bay 3, announced the ship's system. Containment failure detected. Dr. Thella moved swiftly to a primary console, initiating a full scan of both patients. Fascinating. Your genetic structures are synchronizing at an accelerated rate, creating a stable hybrid cellular matrix. This defies all established principles of xenobiology. Alarms blared throughout the medical bay as security protocols detected the unscheduled removal of patient restraints. Through their strengthening bond, Derek sensed Astra's growing awareness of external threat security teams converging on their location, Admiral Vrex coordinating with his personal guard detail, and Commander Krezel recovering from the combat simulation, his mind focused on recaptured Dr. Astra. They're coming, Derek said, helping Astra from the diagnostic platform. Vrex plans to transport us to a black site facility. Dr. Thella's fingers flew across her console. I need more time to complete these scans. What's happening between you represents an evolutionary adaptation, not contamination. We need to leave the ship, Astra stated, her scales rippling with urgency. Her eyes met Derek's, and through their connection, he understood immediately she had accessed classified information during her brief meeting with her father. Informed DRON about Earth. The Draxon attack fleet, he breathed, the knowledge transferring directly from her mind to his. They're heading toward Earth. Dr. Thella's head snapped up from her console. What did you say? There's no time, Astra said, moving toward a supply cabinet and retrieving emergency medical kits. Derek, the maintenance access panel behind the tissue R doctor. Narration unit leads to service corridors. We can reach the shuttle bay through section 42B, Derek nodded, already moving toward the panel she'd indicated. Dr. Thella, you should distance yourself from this situation. When they discover we've escaped, my research will be confiscated and classified, the Voltan doctor interrupted, downloading data to a portable medical tricorder. I'm coming with you. This transformation represents a breakthrough in cross-species biology that powerful factions clearly wish to suppress. The maintenance panel slid open, revealing a narrow service corridor designed for maintenance drones and emergency access. Astra's scales shifted to match the corridor's coloration of Breen camouflage response while Derek felt his skin tingle as Simul Doctor. Patterns formed across his exposed forearms. Security override, announced the ship's system as the medical bay doors began cycling open. Stand by for entry, Go, Dr. Thella urged, joining them at the access panel with her medical kit and tricorder. I'll follow and seal the passage behind us. As they slipped into the maintenance corridor, Derek felt Astra's consciousness merge more completely with his own. Their movements synchronized without verbal coordination, each anticipating the other's actions through their strengthening telepathic bond. Behind them, Dr. Thella sealed the access panel seconds before security forces stormed the medical bay. Together, they moved through the ship's service corridors toward an uncertain escape, carrying with them both the evidence of their unprecedented biological compatibility and the warning that Earth desperately needed to receive. Here, without warning, the maintenance corridor lurched as the ship executed an emergency evasive maneuver. Derek braced against the wall, his newly developed senses detecting the shift in gravitational pull before his inner ear registered the movement. They've put the entire ship on high alert, Astra whispered, her scales cycling through defensive patterns. The Admiral is sealing all escape routes. The narrow passage before them illuminated with emergency lighting as they approached an intersection. Through their strengthening bond, Derek sensed Astra calculating routes, doctor-assessing ship schematics embedded in her training. He could visualize the path as if reading a map projected directly into his consciousness. Security teams are converging on Deck 4, Doctor. Thella announced, checking a small monitoring device. They've activated biometric scanners throughout the primary corridors. Derek felt a wave of protective instinct wash over him as he looked at Astra. The bond between them vibrated with shared purpose. The shuttle bay is 2 levels down, he said, moving toward the right passage. We, Doctor, need to bypass the automated security protocols. Astra nodded, her movements perfectly synchronized with his. The maintenance tubes in Junction 38C will bypass the primary security checkpoints. Dr. Thella, your medical override codes might grant us temporary access. They moved silently through the dimly lit passages, avoiding the main corridors where Doctor, ID teams conducted their search. The ship's announcement system periodically activated, declaring a biosecurity emergency requiring all personnel to report to designated containment areas. At Junction 38C, Dr. Thella connected her medical tricorder to an access panel. My authorization only Dr. Ravid's limited clearance, she explained, fingers working rapidly. Security protocols are being updated in real time to restrict medical personnel access. The panel blinked green momentarily before cycling to amber. Dr. Thella frowned, adjusting her approach. Admiral Vrex is personally monitoring override attempts, she said. We have approximately 20 seconds before this access attempt triggers a location alert. Derek placed his hand next to hers on the panel. To his surprise, the interface responded to his doctor, the display shifting from amber to green. Beneath his fingers, faint patterns of light traced outlines matching the iridescent markings now developing on his skin. The system recognized your altered biometric signature, Dr. Thella observed, fascination overriding her concern. Your integration with Breen biology has granted you access privileges beyond standard human parameters. The maintenance hatch slid open, revealing a vertical tube with ladder rungs extending downward. Derek led the way, his muscles responding with unfamiliar strength and precision. The transformation had enhanced his physical capabilities, making him acutely aware of every movement. They descended rapidly, emerging into a cargo processing area adjacent to the shuttle bay. Through the transparent wall panels, Derek observed armed security teams establish a perimeter around the available transport vessels. 6 guards at the main entrance, 4 more inside examining the shuttles, Astra reported, her enhanced vision cataloging threats with predatory efficiency. They're expecting us. Dr. Thella activated her scanner again. The emergency medical shuttle in Bay 4 has minimal security monitoring. It's designated for critical patient transport, not personnel evacuation. Derek focused on the small vessel visible through the far wall. It was designed for stability rather than speed, but its navigation systems were fully automated for emergency situations. "We need a distraction," he said, examining the cargo processing controls. Astra moved to a nearby maintenance console. The loading system can be reprogrammed to initiate an emergency containment protocol. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across the interface. "It will temporarily seal this section and trigger decontamination procedures." As she worked, Derek sensed a presence approaching Commander Krezel, his mind focused and predatory. The Breen officer had recovered from their earlier confrontation and was now leading a team directly toward their position. "We need to move now," Derek urged, feeling Kree Doctor, proximity through the ship's vibrations. "He's coming." Astra completed the final command sequence and stepped back, decontamination sequence initiating in 10 seconds. They moved quickly toward the emergency access door leading to Bay 4. Dr. Thella used her medical authorization to unseal the pressure doors, which reluctantly slid open just enough for them to pass through single file. As they entered the shuttle bay, alarm klaxons activate Doctor, rough out the cargo section. Emergency containment fields shimmered into existence, temporarily trapping Krezel's security team behind barriers designed to prevent biological contamination. "The medical shuttle requires physician authorization for launch," Dr. Thella said, approaching the compact vessel. "I can provide the necessary codes, but we'll need to disable the automated return protocols." Derek, Astra's sudden alertness through their bond. She turned toward the bay's main entrance, scales rippling in warning patterns. "Admiral Vrex is overriding the containment protocols," she said. "Security teams will breach this section in approximately 60 seconds. Doctor." Thella worked rapidly at the shuttle's external access panel, her four-fingered hands dancing across the interface. "I've authorized emergency launch procedures and disabled the automated navigation constraints. The vessel will respond to manual control once we clear the bay doors." The shuttle's entry hatch opened with a pneumatic hiss. As they boarded, the ship's announcement system activated again. "Attention all personnel. By direct order of Admiral Vrex, lethal force is now authorized to contain the biohazard threat in Shuttle Bay 4. This is not a drill." Derek settled into the pilot's position, his hands moving instinctively across controls that should have been unfamiliar. Dr. R. Through his bond with Astra, he accessed her knowledge of Confederation vessel operations, the information flowing between them without conscious effort. "The main bay doors are sealed," Astra observed, taking the co-pilot station. "Standard override procedures won't work." Dr. Thella secured herself in the passenger compartment, activating the shuttle's medical systems. The emergency protocols include an independent launch capability for critical medical evacuations. Derek located the emergency launch control system, designed to ensure medical transports could depart even during ship-wide lockdowns. Activating emergency medical departure sequence. The shuttle systems responded, establishing a priority override channel to the bay control systems. Warning lights activated throughout the bay as atmospheric containment fields prepared for a medical emergency breach. Through the viewscreen, Derek saw Krezel's team finally breach the containment barriers, rushing into the shuttle bay with weapons drawn. The commander's eyes locked with Derek's across the distance, his expression coldly calculating. "Launch now," Astra urged, her scales flaring with defensive coloration. Derek activated the final sequence. The shuttle's engines hummed to life as a localized energy field formed around the vessel. The bay's emergency doors began to open, creating a narrow exit path while maintaining atmospheric integrity within the larger ship. Security forces opened fire, energy pulses dissipating harmlessly against the shuttle's medical transport shields barriers, designed to protect vulnerable patients during evacuation procedures. The shuttle lifted smoothly from its docking cradle and accelerated toward the narrow opening. Derek guided it with unexpected precision, his transformed nervous system interfacing seamlessly with the controls. The vessel cleared the bay doors seconds before they automatically resealed, preventing further atmosphere loss. As they emerged into open space, the Harmony loomed above them, its massive hull blocking the stars. Defense systems tracked their departure, but the vessel's medical designation temporarily protected them from immediate interception. "Set course for the nearest jump point," Astra instructed, her hands joining Derek's on the navigation controls. Where their skin touched, energy seemed to flow between them, strengthening their connection. "The shuttle's hyperdrive capabilities are limited, Doctor," Thela cautioned, studying the vessel's specifications. "We can make one jump, but we'll need to select our destination carefully." Derek felt knowledge flowing through his bond with Astra coordinates, security codes, classified information she had accessed during her meeting with her father. One set of coordinates stood out with particular significance. "Doctor." "Earth," he said with certainty. "We need to reach Earth." Astra nodded, her scales shifting to reflect the drive they shared. "My father provided emergency access codes for Earth's defense perimeter. He suspected the Draxan attack isn't a coincidence." "The Draxan are moving against Earth?" Dr. Thela asked, her scientific detachment momentarily broken by surprise. "Yes," Derek confirmed, programming the coordinates into the navigation system. "And we're the only ones who can warn them." The shuttle's sensors detected larger vessels powering up within the Harmony's launch base pursuit craft preparing to intercept them. Derek accelerated toward the jump point, pushing the medical shuttle beyond its design parameters. "Hyperdrive charging," Astra reported. 87% capacity. On the tactical display, 3 Confederation security vessels emerged from the Harmony, accelerating rapidly toward their position. "They're targeting our propulsion systems," Derek observed, executing evasive maneuvers. "They want to disable us, not destroy us." The hyperdrive indicator reached 95% as the pursuit vessels closed the distance. Energy weapons powered up on the lead interceptor, aiming for the shuttle's engine housing. "Hyperdrive ready," Astra announced. Derek met her gaze, their bond pulsing with shared purpose. Together, they Doctor, aided the jump sequence. The stars elongated around them as the shuttle leapt into hyperspace, leaving the Harmony and its pursuit craft behind. The vessel shuddered under the strain of the emergency jump, systems never designed for such direct intervention protesting the commands. "Hull integrity stable," Dr. Thela reported, monitoring the shuttle's diagnostic systems. "Estimated arrival at Doctor, Earth defense perimeter in 17 hours. Derek released his death grip on the controls, allowing himself a moment to process what had just happened. His forearms now displayed distinct patterns matching Astra's scale formations, evidence of the accelerating transformation. "We need to prepare," he said, turning to Dr. Thela. "When we reach Earth, we'll need to convince Earth Defense Command about the Draxan threat. They'll need proof." The Voltan doctor nodded, connecting her medical tricorder to the shuttle's data systems. "I'll compile all available data on your transformation and the intelligence regarding the Draxan fleet. Earth's military authorities will require substantial evidence to mobilize their defenses." Astra's scales rippled with subtle color changes as she accessed the shuttle's communication array. "We should prepare a secure transmission using my father's diplomatic codes. Earth's defense perimeter maintains strict protocols against unidentified vessels." As they settled Doctor, their journey, Derek became increasingly aware of Astra's physical state through their bond. The interrupted mating cycle continued to affect her biology, creating cascading changes that intertwined with his own transformation. Their proximity had stabilized the most dangerous symptoms, but the process remained incomplete. "Dr. Thela," he said quietly. "What exactly is happening to us?" The Voltan scientist studied her scanner readings with professional interest. "Your cellular structures are continuing to adapt, creating a stable hybrid configuration that incorporates elements from both species. The physical transformation appears to be accelerating with proximity." She adjusted her scanner settings, focusing on their neural patterns. "More fascinating is the development of your telepathic connection. Such bonds typically only form between compatible species with established evolutionary pathways. This spontaneous adaptation defies conventional xenobiological principles." Astra moved closer to Derek, her scales shifting to display patterns that resonated with his emerging markings. "The bond was not part of my assignment," she said softly. "But it may be the only reason we discovered the truth about the Draxan attack." Derek nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling between them. As the shuttle carried them toward Earth and the approaching conflict, he realized their transformation represented something beyond their personal connection. It demonstrated possibilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about species compatibility throughout the Confederation. The shuttle's navigation system indicated their trajectory toward the Sol system, where Earth's defenses remained unaware of the approaching Draxan threat. Through the viewscreen, hyperspace streamed past in luminous patterns, carrying them toward a confrontation that would determine not just Earth's fate, but potentially the future relationship between humans and the wider galactic community.